I recently got a chance to interview Andy Gladwin for the podcast. He is a magician, creator, and a publisher who is part owner of Vanishing Inc., one of the biggest magic websites on the planet. He is an absolute fantastic human being, and it was an absolute pleasure to talk to him. And I think after listening to this podcast, you'll realize why everybody in the magical community just loves him. So here is our interview with Andy Gladwin.
I'm Andy Gladwin, and this is Magician's Workshop.
So we're gonna get real deep. We're gonna ask you first, who is Andy Gladwin?
Well, that is a deep way to start. I am basically a very busy person, is how I review myself. I get to split my time between performing magic, running Vanishing Inc., publishing and writing books for Vanishing Inc., and a whole lot more. So my life is fully magic. I am a dad, but other than that, I am just a magician non-stop, 24/7. And that's who I am. I just love what I do, and I feel like I have the best job in the world.
Wow. So your dad, how many and what ages? And
I have one 9-year-old son who's just kind of started to get into magic, which is nice. He loves Tenyo stuff. And yeah, most evenings we'll spend time sitting, hanging out and doing some magic. And I'm teaching him a custom balls routine right now. And it's cool because I get to go on my travels, come back, bring new magic toys, and then we play with them. So it's been a fun experience.
You're winning the parenting game when you can do that.
It's fun that I get to kind of bring him into my world. So maybe one day Vanishing Inc. will be in good hands. Who knows?
What was your earliest memory of magic?
I remember watching a lot of magicians when we would go on vacation, and they were always kind of comedy acts or illusionists. And I always thought that was what I wanted to do. I was really excited by this idea of performing big illusions, but I kind of became more and more realistic over time. An illusionist is a special type of performer. They move in certain ways and they have a special kind of energy. And that's not me. That wasn't me. I was kind of an introverted, shy kid. So by necessity, when I was like 15, 16 years old, I kind of realized I need to stop doing this kind of stuff and I need to start doing what naturally feels good in my body. And that's close-up magic. So, yeah, out of necessity, I changed what my dream was, and I much prefer the route I took.
But it seems like it was always magic related. Was there ever a course where you're like, oh, I want to go into doing something else, or was it pretty much like dead set?
No, actually the complete opposite. I really didn't want to be a professional magician. I wanted to be a computer programmer, and I got offered a job when I was at school to work for a programming company as a web developer, and I was really close to quitting school and taking this full-time job. But I managed to hang on for the last few months of school and did my exams. And then the day I left school for study leave, which is a thing we have in the UK where you have like 4 months of kind of self-study before your exams, I didn't study. Instead, I worked as a web designer, web developer. And yeah, I had a full-time job from that point. And it was something I loved, and for the 6, maybe 7 years after that, I was working as a full-time person in IT, and I absolutely loved it. And I had no intention of leaving to be a magician. But a few things happened. One is Vanishing Inc. started to become a lot more popular than we expected very quickly. But also, I was starting to watch my friends become exceptional magicians and realize that I'm getting left behind. And when you have friends like, I grew up with people like Luke Jamay and Joshua J across the pond, but still, when you have those kind of friends who are trailblazing in the magic world, and you start to self-reflect and you go, "Well, that's not me. I should be as good as these guys, but I'm not." The only answer is you have to perform more. Like, the reason they're great, one of the many reasons they're great, I should say, is that they perform a lot. So I realized I had to quit my job, but I kind of joke that I didn't quit my job to become a professional magician. I quit my job to practice magic, because that's what I needed to do, is to dedicate that time to being the magician that I wanted to be. So in some ways, if I could rewind, maybe I would still be a web developer or a programmer or work in product design, that kind of thing. But I don't regret the choice I made at all. But I really did see that being the path I would take.
Wow. Well, it seems like you still are into web development.
So the Vanishing Inc website that you see right now is almost, I would, let's say 95% designed, developed, coded by me. It's over 1 million lines of code. It's
Wow.
thousands and thousands of lines of checking in code of constantly. It has updates, maybe 2-3 updates a day. But now I'm very lucky that I have a development team that work alongside me. But for the first 14, 15 years of Vanishing Inc, it was just me going for it, along with doing all the other stuff and kind of squeezing it in. But now we have a great development team, and they're currently working on a lot of new projects. So I get to take a bit more of a step back now on that kind of stuff. But as they will tell you, as anyone in the team will tell you, it is my passion. So I still jump in and spend a couple of hours a day programming on the website, but not because I need to, but because truly I love to. So that's a part of the job that probably everybody in the team wishes I didn't do, because I'm not as good as the guys we have. And also I should probably be focusing on other things, but I love doing it and I will keep doing it.
Oh, wow. That is actually really cool. Do you have a favorite card effect?
It changes pretty regularly, actually, often depending on what I'm working on. I have a trick that I think is the best constructed card trick of all time. And that's probably a better way to answer it for me, which is it's Edward G. Brown's Thought of Card Transposition. It's published in the Card Magic of Edward G. Brown. It was also a trick that people like Di Vernon and Ed Marlowe really admired. Ricky Jay did the trick.
Oh, wow.
It's one I love performing. It kind of went under the radar over the last 20 years or so. And so I've been performing that a lot. Like if you find me in a situation where I have nothing, or I just have a deck of cards, but I have an audience of, I don't know, up to 100, 150 people, that's the trick I'll bust out. I love doing it. But also, it's just a perfect construction of a card trick. One sleight does so much stuff, and it's, to me, impossible to reverse engineer. So that's a trick I just love doing. The ultimate goal to me is to just create the perfect effect, or as close to. We'll never get there, but it's certainly a great goal to work towards it. So to me, I'm not scared off by a sleight. I'm not scared off by a gimmick. Some of the tricks in my show are incredibly difficult to do. Other ones are incredibly easy to do. But I think the ultimate goal is that I want the audience to feel that they've experienced a great magic effect. And if that means spending a couple of years working on a sleight, of which I've done many times, then that will be something I do. But I have no shame in using a self-working trick. And actually, kind of the older I get, I find two things happen. One is that sleights naturally feel easier, I guess, because the more I work on them, the more they become ingrained in my muscle memory. They feel easier, so I have less fear about doing those sleights in a performance. But secondly, I am performing more and more easier magic, I guess, and that's not a deliberate choice, but I think it's the more I focus on the effect, the less I worry about what the method is. Darwin Ortiz had this great quote, which is, "It only matters how a method affects the effect." And I think that's great. And that's what I run pretty much everything through that. How do I affect the effect with it? Can I make the effect better by using a difficult method? Then I'll do it. Even if it's 2% better, I will be very happy to work on a sleight to make that happen. There's this theory that has been bandied around a lot over the internet for the last couple of years of the anti-library, this idea that you should own books that you know you'll never get a chance to read, because that way it gives you this idea that there's always more to learn. And with sleights, that is absolutely the case for me. I'm very much aware that even in 10 lifetimes, I will not be able to perfect every classic sleight, and I'm quite happy with that. But I certainly want to have fun trying to get there.
Nice. Are there any of effects that you've invented that you're the most proud of?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, there's a couple actually, and for a reason, for both of them. My Magic Square routine, which I don't really do it as much for magicians nowadays, but it's 2 magic squares that I'm doing in unison. One of them is upside down, so at the end I reveal the second number as I turn the magic square over. And another one is a tossed out deck routine that I have been doing a lot more. If you see me at places like Chicago Magic Lounge or the Magic Castle, those kind of things, there's a good chance I'll open with it. And the reason I'm proud of both of those tricks is actually it shows the opposite of how I like to work. I'm a very collaborative creator. I basically can't create a trick unless I'm talking it through with one of my friends and bouncing ideas back and forth. And I really do value their ideas. But both of those tricks were tricks that all of my friends unanimously agreed, this is a bad trick. You should not pursue this trick. And normally I listen to them when they say that because I have great friends who are great magicians, and so there's no point in asking for their advice if I don't kind of believe it and agree with it. But both of these tricks I push through, and over the course of 10 years or so, have now developed both to pieces where one of those tricks I open with, the other one I close with. So I'm kind of proud of myself personally for those, for pushing through against all the odds, I guess.
What made you gravitate towards cards versus coins versus any other type of magic?
I kind of touched on it earlier, actually, about finding that illusionists and stage performers that didn't feel right inside my body. I just am an introverted person. Although I learned this great phrase recently, ambivert, which is much better describes me. If you leave me to my own devices, I'm an introvert. But if you put me around a load of extroverts and I need to be extroverted, I will be. It's a perfect way of summing it up. And So I just was never good on stage, so I focused on close-up magic. In the UK, especially, close-up magic is kind of a great entry level for doing shows. Like, if you want to be working as a professional magician, start as a close-up magician. And I say entry level, and I don't mean that in any kind of shameful way. There are a lot of magicians who make a career for their entire life as a close-up magician, but it's an easy way of starting. So that was useful for me. And then after that, that's when you have to start pushing yourself out of the comfort zone. And for me, I was a close-up magician for a long time, but over the last 5-6 years, I've been trying to push myself into parlor environments, stage environments. So yeah, I do gravitate towards card magic because it just felt right in my body when I did it. But now, over the years, I've kind of tried to elevate that beyond just close-up magic.
Oh, if a beginner asks you, never touched a deck of cards, what would you suggest their first card trick be?
Here's a great one that I've been playing around with recently, and I taught it to my 9-year-old son. It's Stuart James's Further Than That. And it's not one that you would naturally find in a beginner's book or anything like that, and I've written beginner's books. But if you want to give somebody a great trick, because that's the important thing. I hate the thought that beginners should get weak tricks. I think actually we need to give them great tricks. Stuart James, Further Than That, requires no slides, but it has like 6 moments of magic. So you really get to feel what it's like to be a magician, and you get to learn about the presentation and the timing and all those things. So a pretty off the beaten track suggestion. It's from the Stuart James books, but that is one I really not only enjoy performing now, but also enjoy teaching other people too.
And I know you've written magic books. What would you recommend as your first magic book to others?
So actually, I've written 2 beginners books over the years. One was for Dynamo, another childhood friend. Me and Josh co-wrote that book, but we kind of were ghostwriters in it. But it's a great beginners book because it's really inexpensive and contains some really good tricks, and a little biography about Dynamo, who's always worth learning about. But the other book we wrote, we own 2 beginner stores, one in Disneyland, Main Street Magic, and one in San Francisco on Pier 39. And we wanted a great book to recommend people when they came into the store to learn. They just want to learn a load of tricks. They don't just want to buy one trick. So we wrote this book called The Ultimate Guide to Magic. And in a similar way to what we did with the Dynamo book, we didn't want to pack it with any basic beginner's tricks. We didn't want this to just be the same carbon copy of the same beginner's books. So that one, to me, is just jam-packed full of really fun magic because we reworked a lot of the easier tricks. We completely reinvented them, and we changed the effects and packed them full of really good magic. The reason we write these books is to get more people into magic. So to fill them with boring dealing tricks or whatever, like it's just such a bad mistake. And I think that's the mistake that years ago old beginners books had. They were like, treating the newcomers to magic as second class citizens. Actually, we want them to learn great magic because we want them to be in magic, because the more of us there are, the better magic can be. It's going to take an army to make magic as great as it can be. So we have to bring as many people in as we can.
Absolutely. That's part of why I'm trying to interview the best magicians I can find, is getting the message out there. Is there any particular difficulty in writing a magic book versus, say, just normally writing?
Yeah, magic books are difficult to explain timing. Often things happen in unison, and that's really hard to well describe. I have 2 things against me. One is I am left-handed, and the second is I am dyslexic. So that makes describing. I'm writing a book about Ed Marlowe's work right now, and this morning I was writing up Ed Marlowe's center deal, and it's very hard to be holding a deck, really working out what the movements are, and then typing it down. So Yeah, not easy, but actually, as with all things in life, I'm able to use those limitations to my advantage. And I actually think my books are easier to read, at least that's the feedback I get, because of those limitations, because it means I really need to extra focus on the words and use the clearest words possible. So yes, magic books are kind of tricky to write for me, but I enjoy doing it. And it's another way of passing on great magic from magic's past.
What made you want to start a magic website?
Josh and I have been friends for many, many years before Vanishing Inc. And he was on a lecture tour of the UK, and he was staying with me on a number of the stops on that tour. And over that time, we kind of had many late night deep conversations, and one of them was our frustration with the products that we create ourselves. There were, at the time, were only a few magic shops that we could sell those products to, or in my case, publish books, have published my books. And the problem was they didn't have the same design aesthetic or product aesthetic as we wished the magic world would have. And so kind of out of necessity, we said, let's try our own thing. Let's work together. We have shared values for sure, but also complementary skill sets. Back then I was the nerdy IT guy who could write a magic book, and Josh was the guy performing all around the world, meeting great magicians. So it seemed like the perfect way of gelling our two skill sets together to create something that truly was supposed to be just a small number of products, maybe 2 or 3 products a year that people would hopefully jump on board with. But it grew very, very quickly. And interestingly, we now find ourselves in a position where we've become the thing that we were trying to stop, which is, now people have to trust us with our design aesthetics and our ideas of how we could market a product. And so that's why we take that side of the business so seriously. We have a whole product team, we have a whole design team, a whole editing team, because we really want to be on the absolute top of our game so that we can never fall into that same trap that made Vanishing Inc. start in the first place. But the whole aim was to be just a small little boutique magic shop. But it seemed like the more people that came to us, the more they expected from us and wanted us to grow so that they could buy all of their magic from us, not just the few tricks or books a year that we released. So wasn't expecting it to be what it was, but I'm so proud that it has become that. There's a team of 48 of us now. Like I said, we have 2 stores, we have warehouses in 2 places, we have a team working 24/7. So it's really outgrown my expectations, but I'm so glad we are where we are.
I want to talk to you a little bit about the decision to kind of take over magic festivals.
We've been running the oldest magic convention in America. It's been, I think, 93, 94 years old now. Hasn't missed a year, and we've been running that. And that's now grown back to 1,000 people. We just had it last weekend, and we're kind of back in full force. And of those 2 conventions, the most important thing to me, and I know to Josh too, is the youth events that we organize there. We have these youth scholarships. If you are a young magician under the age of 18, basically no questions asked, you can come for free with a parent. And if you need support with travel or food or lodging or whatever, we'll also work with you on that too. And these events have just become a real hub for young magicians. And people ask, who run other conventions, how do we emulate that? How do we get more young magicians? And the truth is, I don't have a good answer. I'm an open book. I would tell anyone anything about how we do it. But I think the truth is you just have to create a safe space for these young magicians and a place where they want to be. And now Magi Fest, for example, we had 65 young magicians. We have a hangout room for them. We basically run a convention within a convention for these young magicians. And they get to learn from all of the performers at the convention, come and teach them magic that only they get to see at that moment. They get to go to all the lectures and the shows. But it's really a special part of what we've been doing over the last few years. And I've been so proud to see that part of the convention grow. And the truth is, I spend most of my time in the youth room at these conventions now because they're so much fun. But we also organize 2 retreats every year as well. This is kind of modeled off the yoga retreat style vibe. It's I think the only kind of magic event in the world where we say, bring your partners. Like, this is something you want to experience with your partner. And so in a couple of months, in March, we're going to Japan to do a 7-day retreat in Japan, where we're going to be traveling around Japan with, I think, 60, 70 magicians. And we're going to be experiencing everything Japan has to offer, but also learning magic along the way too from magicians in Japan. And then we're doing the same in Mexico City in September. And every year we do a big international retreat and then a North America, close to North America kind of retreat as well. So they've become so much fun as well. And yeah, I'm very lucky that I get to call this a job.
That's amazing.
We took all of the young magicians and we took them, we gave them a backstage tour of how MagiFest works, how the tech works. A couple of the young magicians said that they really are into the tech. So we said, well, okay, you're going to get to work on the tech desk for the next event, which happened to be Justin Willman's interview. A couple of them said they really wanted to meet Justin. So we sat everybody down after the tour and we didn't arrange it with Justin. We just pulled him in that moment and said, Justin, the kids have some questions for you. And he did like a 30-minute chat with them, just with this small group of magicians, and then we snuck them in for front row seats for Justin's interview. And Carissa was there. We also have Gabrielle Lester, Abby Siegel as well, and some of the Vanishing Inc team all work as part of this youth group alongside Carissa, who leads it. And I wish I had this when I was a kid, and I think in some part that's why we invest so much in it. Because Josh and I didn't have these things when we were kids at conventions, and we were the kind of nerdy kids walking around with decks of cards in our hands and terrible haircuts, and we didn't have this safe space. So we've really invested in that for our conventions.
Wow, that's so cool.
It's so much fun. And the best part as well is that you get to see these young magicians, because they come year on year. You get to see them not only grow, but become exceptional magicians. And let me give you 2 examples of that. A couple of years ago, there was a 7-year-old magician who does a better Pharaoh shuffle than me, just sat there doing Pharaoh shuffles. So I got to learn magic from a 7-year-old magician. And then this year, David Ben, one of the best technical card magicians in the world, sat and taught the Dad Stevens control to a 10-year-old. Dad Stevens control is the most difficult move in card magic, and a 10-year-old was learning from him. So it's great to see these magicians year on year just get better and better and create new magic and come back and share it with everyone. It's so much fun.
That's fantastic. How do you vet collaborators that you work with?
You can feel it immediately, is the truth. From one email, I can tell whether or not somebody is the right person to work with us. And often the people we work with are actually people that we know, but we do get submissions every day. I would say between 10 and 15 submissions every day. And we have a team that work through those submissions to find the good ones or find the most suitable ones. And I always remind people, a good trick to sell is very different from just a good trick. So we turn down a lot of the good tricks because they just don't fit what we're looking for to sell. But one of my rules is I want to only pick up tricks that have been performed at least 1,000 times. And when I say earlier that you can tell who we want to collaborate with very quickly, that's the main indicator. I can tell whether somebody has performed a trick that many times because they've thought through all of the potential problems. They have a great presentation for it. It's not just some kind of half-baked idea. And so for me, those are the key metrics I'm looking for. But just normally by talking to the magician about that trick, we can normally find out whether they're a suitable collaborator for us.
Can you explain the masterclass?
It came about during the pandemic. We found ourselves in a pretty sticky situation of we promised all of our employees that they would keep their job, that they would not be furloughed, and that we would do whatever it took to make sure that everybody in the team was safe and still in a job. And so we had to get creative. But at the same time, we also knew that the magic world was sat at home and wanted to learn new magic. And actually, those years during the pandemic, I think magic took a bigger step up than ever before on a skill level, technical level, and the number of people who enjoyed magic. So we just kind of found that those two things merged, that masterclass would be an idea that allowed us to keep our team in employment, but also give magicians the content that they were looking for, whilst also, on the side thing, helping other magic creators earn a living too. So all of those things kind of merged together, and we created Masterclass, which, for those who don't know, it's every month you get 2 lectures, an hour-and-a-half lecture, and a Q&A as well. But also, nowadays, if you subscribe to it, you get access to the full back catalog of Masterclass, which I think we're at like 50 or 60 Masterclasses now by some killer magicians. So it's really become this big resource of magic. And you get this whole download library as well of other products on the Vanishing Inc website. So to me, it's an offering that I'm really proud of because we've created this stamp of a moment in time. Every month, you have this new lecturer talking about a new subject. And in 100 years' time, we can can go back and we can see the kind of magic that people were performing and talking about then. And it's just become a really valuable resource.
Yeah, and it's a very high production value too. They look really good.
The whole masterclasses look really great. We travel around the world filming these things. We just got back from last month. We filmed in Las Vegas for 2 weeks, where we filmed a lot of masterclasses. We filmed the Piff the Magic Dragon masterclass, which comes out this week. We filmed Taylor Hughes, Siegfried Tiber, lots of masterclasses, and we have a filming team, and our filming team really kind of pull out all the stops with the masterclass because it's basically our flagship offering right now. I love to talk about magic and love to work with other magicians, so yeah, I appreciate this opportunity to be on the podcast and share.
Absolutely. Can you tell us a little bit about your socials? Like, give them out.
Yeah, I'm terrible at social media, but I'm on them.
They're right here, right now.
Oh, there they are.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I don't know where
edit them in. I don't know. Over our faces.
Yeah, but I don't really use social media all that much, but I'm on it, and people seem to find a way to contact me through it, so it can be done.
Thank you so much, Andy Gladwin, for coming on our podcast. It's been a pleasure, and we can't wait to see more of you. Please go visit vanishinginc.com. It's a fantastic website. Thank you very much. Thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss an update. It helps us a great deal. It's quick, it's easy, and it makes a huge difference. And we will see you on the next episode.